Good day and welcome to the Strong Ambition Podcast. I'm your host, Rylan Qualley, and I'm going to dive into training and nutrition and mindset today, all three, because I have another fellow online fat loss trainer. This is Daniel Raz Israeli, and a really cool conversation because he also does online training. He's been doing it around the same time, but he has a much different approach from me because he believes in more of the body weight at home, how you get that, when people are trying to get that 30 to 40 or 50 pounds off and they're busy. That's his kind of personality type. And it's really cool because I loved having a fellow trainer on here. And I know just similar to me and AJ, we can banter, there's more discussion. And so this was a really cool episode. So I want to leave more just for you to experience it. But there's some really good lessons here because we dive into accountability. We dive into what challenges people have. I talk about where I see some challenges within the body weight model, but then he talks about how he does help that, and it's not the end of the world. We can actually work around some of these issues. So without further ado, here is Daniel Raz Israeli. Good day, Daniel. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. Thanks a lot for having me.
Well, I'm really glad you reached out. I love talking to a fellow trainer. So let's dive into this. I want to get to know you more. I want my audience to know you more as you are also a fitness fat loss coach. So, but I'm always curious of someone's story. So why don't you introduce yourself, tell people about, kind of where you grew up, how you got into the industry.
Definitely. So I'm Daniel Raz. I describe myself as an online fitness trainer, and I like my slogan to be, I help busy men lose weight without going to the gym. And I am from Israel, as you can probably hear from my accent. I grew up in China, so from 6 to 18. And when I was 18, I decided to go to university in Canada for exercise and nutrition.
Wow, that's fascinating. You grew up in China, you said?
Yep.
That's such a unique culture shift. So was that just where your family was located in China?
Yeah.
Do you speak Mandarin or any other Asian languages?
A bit. I mean, I could get around. I probably forgot all of it by now, but where I was, it was a pretty westernized place. I mean, when I first came, I was the only non-Chinese person there. But yeah, now there's a lot of foreigners, so a lot of people speak English.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
English has become the most international language, right?
yeah.
So how old were you when you came over to North America?
18.
18. Okay, so that's quite a childhood in there. And I'm just really curious, what kind of culture changes do you notice the difference of like growing up in Asia versus coming here? Like what kind of culture shifts was it?
Right. So where I lived, there was like 20 million people in like a city. It's extremely crowded. There's about the same population in all of Canada, right? And it's all apartments, and you walk everywhere. So that's a pretty different like, cultural change because here and a lot of places in North America, if you don't have a car, you can't move around. You can't do anything. Like you need a car to just survive. But over there, you just walk everywhere, and yeah, you do groceries like you can do every day. You can just go to the grocery store every day. The carts are like 1/4 of the size of the carts, like the shopping carts in Costco or Walmart. So yeah, just a couple of things that are different.
That makes complete sense. The whole thing of how it's it's urban sprawl here in North America. I live in Winnipeg, and in Winnipeg, it's like you absolutely need a car to get most places.
Yeah.
I'm pumped if I can take a 45-minute walk to go get some food. Like I actually like that kind of a walk because having like we have sedentary lifestyles now, and so it's like it's super interesting with cultures in Asia and Europe. If you have to walk everywhere, it's actually how a lot of people stay fit a lot
Yep.
easier. I mean, you have issues already with the food industry, but at least with literally walking has been taken away from so many people. So
Yeah.
that's a really cool one. What else did you notice growing up that was a different kind of culture shift?
Also, just like clothes size and also food size, like medium over there means medium, means like large, like medium over here is like large or extra large over there, right? So both for clothes size and for fries size, for Coke size, for sodas, everything, the size different is different, right? And if everyone is fit around you, even if it's strangers, it's not easier to be fit yourself. So everybody knows that like you are like the sum of the five people you're around with. Even if they're strangers, if everyone's fit, you're just more likely to be fit. So that's a cultural change, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. The size is a big thing. The American supersizing of everything, right? And I noticed that even from Canada to the States, you go to the States, and all of a sudden you're getting bigger serving sizes of everything. And yeah, I even in Canada, it's still quite large. So that's a really big one. One of the other ones I'd be curious about is I noticed that they have a different cultural perspective towards meat and towards salt and that kind of stuff. Did you notice anything like that in the food?
Yes, I definitely feel like there's a lot more of it, but it's different because in general, like Chinese food in America or Canada is different than Chinese food in China, right? It's not the same. Like it's not like Panda Express all the time. It's there's a lot of oil, but it's a lot of meat, vegetables, and yeah, it's hard to describe, but it's different. It's not the same as what most Americans think of Chinese food.
Yeah, and I've just heard some really interesting research in terms of like when you look at certain population, you look at the Western population when it has to do with meat intake, it looks really negative because that's where poor health outcomes come.
Yeah,
But when you look at the Asian culture, the more Asian cultures actually see like red meat and all these things as
definitely.
more higher quality and more wealthy people have them. So and the fitness status is a lot better than the American. There's still issues with obesity all over the world, but it's just you get different numbers when you look at different populations. So I was just really curious about that. But so any other major things that were kind of hard to shift over into? I'm really curious about that because shifting the culture, shifting your attitudes towards whether it's fitness or training, anything like that when you moved over here.
The only other thing I can think of is the first time I've ever had a drive-through was in like North America. There's no real drive-throughs over there, right? Because you don't drive, you walk, right? And there's also like street foods, which sometimes is sketchy, right? It's not always the safest, but still that might be a healthier option than McDonald's or Taco Bell or things like that.
Right, right. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. You know, we just everything we can to make you
Super
easier. Yeah,
sustainable.
make anything to make you fatter is going to happen over here. It's just it's the ease. The culture is about making it easier on people. But have you visited Asia ever since then at all?
Um, yes, a couple of years ago, just to visit my parents, but only like one time in the last 7 years.
Right. Because I've just heard that in Hong Kong, it's like a whole different world out there.
Yeah,
Like the
yeah.
technological advances are just you're in the future. Have you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like especially recently, like uh, China in a lot of places only just now finished the lockdown, so it wasn't pleasant to go the last couple of years.
Right. Yeah. No, they're hard stranglehold over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you moved over here, and like you say, you like to work with fitness professionals or sorry, busy professionals to work at home. Tell me how you kind of evolved into saying, hey, I want to be a trainer. I want to help people with physical education or training, and what made you stay within the training realm?
Definitely. So when I went to school, about 95% of my classmates want to be physiotherapists. And the first year, I wanted to be a physiotherapist as well. But the second and third year of university, I decided like I kind of just want to be a personal trainer. I just feel like that's a lot more. It just speaks to me a lot more. So yes, like I wanted to do that, but I also wanted to train people online. I feel like I could help out more people than just one on one. And in 2020, I'm not sure if you've heard, but there's sort of a lockdown going on everywhere. So I'm like, okay, now this is the perfect time to try to take a risk, try to make my own business, try to make a living out of this.
Right. Yeah. I find that really interesting. So you went through school as well, and I was doing the same thing. I knew I wanted to be a trainer, so it wasn't even a question. Like when I had all these people, I was like, yeah, I'm doing physio, I'm doing athletic therapy, OT. I just like I didn't understand why people wanted to work with hurt populations, but that's intuitively within them. They believe, and there's way more money in it. Like it's way more secure of a job. Now there is money in personal training, and online training is the best avenue for it currently, but it's not an easy lifestyle to try to make it in this business. So I think that's really cool because when you look at what a trainer is. You can look at the lens of overall healthcare system. They are the absolute frontier workers that have the
Yep.
best chance of improving the health of the population. So I think that's really cool. And what was it to you that made you really say this is better than physio for me? What really pulled you in?
Right, because I remember someone gave me the metaphor of the fact that personal training is like prevention and everything else is the cue, right? Like they gave a pretty odd metaphor, but the metaphor was imagine if people walking on a bridge and the bridge isn't stable, so people fall into the water, right, into the river, and then later on, there's people um, grabbing the pedestrians that fell into the river outside to save them, right? And they said that the healthcare is focusing on people to save them once they're in the water rather than just building a more stable bridge, right? So basically, focus on prevention will make a much bigger change than focusing on the cure.
Absolutely. And I think it's a very complicated thing when it comes to the healthcare system because we realize this decades into the problem. I think, when I was first getting into university, probably just a bit before you, and hearing the stats, hearing about how unhealthy the population was, and this was over 10 years ago, it's 15 years ago, and another decade of that, it only got worse. Just appreciating that we are already in the shitstorm of the obesity epidemic and it's only getting worse. So the thing that I do, my heart goes out to some of the like governments and like how that all gets structured, but it's still really sad to see that money doesn't go into providing that initial care, right? Like imagine, and I think I've heard stats, but they're all theoretical stats, that if, health insurance could cover trainers more frequently, could cover nutritionists more routinely, the healthcare costs would just come down so much more in the industry, right? So I totally understand that preventative care. And for yourself, what made you so inspired to really love training, to really love just because that's a big thing is like you have to be someone really inspired by the whole methodology, right? Have you trained your whole life? Have you always been really motivated to train?
Right. That's a really good question. I definitely believe that training is the most transferable skill, right? So, as an example, if you're extremely competent at piano, that's great, but you can't show off that skill unless you have a piano near you. But your body is something you can take with you everywhere you go. So, as a kid, like a teenager, I played a lot of basketball. That's all I did, basically. And I felt comfortable, like confident within myself on the basketball court. If there was a basketball in my hand, I felt confident. But in outside life, in daily life, I felt like I was unsure of myself often, like insecure many times, and I still didn't feel the best. But when I started working out more seriously, I found that confidence sort of translated into everyday life because I could take my body with me everywhere I go.
Yeah, I really love that simplicity of training is training you, training your body is training everything else, right? Because think of any other skill, whether it is the piano or it is basketball, and what makes things better, sets and reps, right? It is the most fundamental form of practice. That's what it is. It's movement practice with your body, and I think this whole cultural perspective grew up with either runners or bodybuilders. And that's kind of really where fitness started for the most part, as much as you look at it, it's just like the Arnolds. And so you think training, that's immediately where the mind goes, right? Oh, I don't want to get bulky. It's like,
Yeah,
what it's about. That's just actually where the mainstream started to finally pay attention to what it is. It all started with the military, actually, right? It all just started with we needed soldiers, and then they created physical education for the population to make the population healthier to possibly have soldiers. So now we see it as just a necessity, which is pretty cool. Like, I mean, you got to think about it, even within your time and my time, with when we were in high school. How old are you, Daniel?
24.
24. So when you were probably, even in elementary school, I would have been just getting out of university, and it still wasn't quite where it is now.
Yeah.
Certainly when I was in high school, so I'm 34, when I was in high school, it was like not common for people to be in the gym, right? In high school. And I was a bit of oh, this guy really cares about his training. It was cool to not care. Now kids are training. Now kids know how to do a body weight squat properly. Like when I train kids in hockey and stuff like that, I'm like, wow, these kids know how to bend their knee and properly use their hips and keep their heels down. Like, I'm very impressed. And so they have more movement literacy coming out, because it is understanding that it's not a thing just for bodybuilders, but it still is in that lens of a lot of people, that the way you and I are talking about it is different. We're seeing it as a health practice. We're seeing it as a psychological practice and a physiological thing that you need to do. We're not seeing it as bodybuilding training. I mean, I do that, but that's not where we see the core of it. And then you had even said, like, you can't bring a piano or a basketball everywhere. You want to work on your confidence, start to be able to do more squats. And guess what? I got better at that. You're going to get better in life. So I really love that kind of depiction of it. And I'm curious, was it more so because of the pandemic that you found the value of the at-home variation, or were you always interested in more just body weight stuff?
So, I mean, I want to be a personal trainer. And then when I had to stay at home, I'm like, okay, I can't go to the gym anymore. I can only do body weight. So I have to figure out how I can stay fit. And then obviously I'm like, okay, well, I feel like I did a pretty good job with myself. I wonder if I can help other people and make a living out of this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a really cool depiction when you're like, hey, I can help someone with this. And it is really what you should really seek in a career, is like, hey, I'm good at doing this for myself, and I have a passion about it. That's the gift that you want to give to society. Right. So how long have you been doing this now?
Like training people online. I mean, since 2020. So like, that's when I first started. So 2.5 years now.
Excellent. Excellent. How do you like the online variation?
At first, I'm like, how do you train people online? Like Zoom calls, like I thought didn't work well, but I've done both, and my experience, people online get better results because 80% of your results would come from accountability and nutrition, right? Which you can only do online. Because in person, you can only work out with them, but to hold someone accountable, to text them, to have check-in calls, that has to be online, right? And the nutrition portion, if I want to see what they eat, I can't go to the kitchen, right? But I can, again, have calls with them, give them general guidelines of what they should eat, what should not. I can see what they eat. So overall, this is when I found out, wow, my online clients get so much better results than my in-person clients. Let's make everyone online. It just makes more sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the big thing that people don't understand about the online variation versus the in-person. The in-person is great for the personability of just, we're breathing the same air, we're sharing conversation, and that is a really intimate scenario. And that's where I started. I did it for over a decade, and I still do some of it. But I saw a huge gap in the accountability formula. I saw that when people were struggling with their nutrition, it would actually take up most of the in-person session because you're talking about it. And I started.
That's the most important part. You can't neglect it.
Right. And you need it, right? Because if you're looking for fat loss, it's like, well, what's going in, right? Like, I mean, the main thing that we're doing with the strength training, as we said, it's getting that confidence, but it's just to make sure that your muscles stick around when you're actually doing a fat loss phase, because otherwise you're going to lose your muscle mass in that fat loss phase, right? And you're going to lose function. You want to maintain those are the healthiest things, right? Now, there's a lot of ups or challenges and battles, uphill battles that you got to manage when it comes to nutrition. And so you do a set of something, and then you start talking about food 5 minutes later, and then you're going down, you end up like a hairdresser or a bartender, because they're going to tell you about their life problems in that session.
Yeah.
Now, if we can, and I do have kind of a hybrid model for some of my clients, as soon as that starts to happen in a conversation in the gym, I'm like, let's save this for another conversation. Let's have a Zoom call, because that is going to ruin, and it's going to ruin your training. Let's do the training. and then let's talk after. And like you see, the accountability is really good. I'm really curious, because you've been doing this for a couple of years, what are some of the main, because I've learned a lot from the accountability formula, because I did so much in person. So I knew a lot of the movements. I knew how to train people in movements, improve that. But I am still personally even learning on how to improve people's accountability and some of the challenges that come up. So what are some of the big challenges that you've seen people have to manage when you're doing this online with your clients, and how do you help them overcome it?
Definitely. So I always tell everyone I work with that the more they communicate with me, the better results they get. It's literally a linear correlation. The more you communicate with me, the better results you'll get. There's no exceptions. And the second thing I emphasize is don't lie to me. I'm not going to be mad. If you said that if you ate a donut, tell me that you ate a donut. Don't not tell me because you have to report it to me. Right? Just be brutally honest. And the more honest you are, the more I can help you out. I feel like because school conditions us to not make any mistakes, then they're afraid to be honest. But as long as you're honest, as long as you communicate with me often, you will get great results because we'll find a way to still include the foods that you like, to still include your vacation and make the best out of it. So yeah, as long as you communicate with me often, as long as you're honest, you'll get good results. If you can't do that, then I can't guarantee anything. That's what I try to emphasize.
Totally agree. That's something that has been like a focal point for all my clients, is just like, look, whatever the challenge is, it's going to be a challenge, but it's like an impossible challenge for us to both overcome if I don't know about it. Communication is key. And people think accountability is just you sending messages. And that's why I always call it the ASC system, because it's accountability support with communication. Because you might not even like, yes, I'm here to hold you accountable. You pay me money so that you have a reason to do it. But eventually that novelty will wear off within the first month or two. And so it's no longer about the money that you're spending. It won't be. It'll be about you telling someone that you messed up. But the best thing is, from a coach, is be like, okay, it's like I'm here to direct you on the path from here. You need to communicate that with me so that I can support it. So I can say, okay, well, what was the challenge? Or how can we learn from this? Because you say lying to you, and I really love that language, because we lie to ourselves so much. And if you can at least just not lie to your coach, then it's harder for you to lie to yourself. And it's easier for you to realize the mistakes. And it's easier for you to come to the conclusion of, okay, that was actually the mistake I made. That was the emotional decision. What kind of things? So lying is one. What are some of the things that you see other people come up with challenges? Because I think listeners will just love to hear some common problems, and we can, kind of banter about how to workshop some of these issues.
Definitely. The reason why communication is so important is because by fixing the way somebody talks, I can change their behaviors. So I hear some people say things, and I go, whoa, don't say that. Why are you speaking that way? That will cause you to make bad decisions. A quick example is like, I have a slow metabolism. That might be true. It may be true, it may not be true. But even if it is true, it's not something you can change. So why would you even focus on that? Be like, I have a slow metabolism, but I'm doing this, this, and this to get better results, to put in more effort, right? Or I don't have time to do X. I'm like, okay, did you schedule it? What did you try? What can you do to figure it out? Or even when people say that I can't eat donuts, I can't drink alcohol. I'm like, oh, don't say you can't, because if you say you can't, if I tell you, be like, hey, you can't press this button, you're not allowed to push the button, whatever you do, do not press this button. You're going to want to press the button, right? So the more you tell yourself to not do something, the more you want to do it, right? So instead say, I don't drink alcohol, I don't eat donuts. This changing that word would make you crave it a lot less. Just changing the way people think helps.
Totally agree. You're hitting a couple key points there. Like, language is massive, because when that's the one skill that I've really developed so well over the last couple of years. I'm like, oh, that's a red flag word that comes up with certain people, like certain negative connotations to themselves, the way they talk to themselves. I've heard, I had someone on here talk about how he's more of a performance psychologist, and he had said you're talking to your subconscious language, it takes, or your subconscious mind, it takes everything literal. It takes it like, I'm just a fat kid, or I'm just a
Yeah.
kid, or I did. It's like, whoa, you're joking to say it out loud to just kind of make peace with it, but it just takes that all literal. And that's a really dangerous way to talk to yourself. And then I can't, or, I got to eat like a robot, or it's like, whoa, like, why do we have to dress it up with that language?
Mhm.
I don't mind if you say you eat pretty disciplined or consistent, but like if you have a negative connotation to the way you're describing your actions, then that's actually how you feel about it. As much as you think it's a joke or
Yeah.
like, I don't totally mean that, but it's like you actually do. And then when you had said the whole I can't thing, you have an inner rebel. Like you're always going to have an inner rebel on all your behaviors if you're and it's just waiting for the moment to come out. And so that inner rebel is always going to be like, I can't, I can't, I can't. Now
And then
that well, yeah, and you're letting a dog out of the house. You let them escape the prison, and so it's like, okay, now I'm out. Now I'm binging. I'm not supposed to do this. I'm an absolute fucking rebel. Let's go to town. And I even make sure when my because my siblings will be appreciative. Like I'm always concerned about nutrition most of the time, and I've even done like some diets, like the carnivore diet, stuff like that. And so my sister at one point is like, "Can you eat this?" And I always catch people and they ask me that. I'm like, I always eat what I want to eat. It's
Yep.
just like,
I love that.
yeah, I choose to eat certain things. And I tell my clients the same thing. It's like, you're always allowed to eat what you want to eat, but just choose the things that are best suited for you in that moment. And sometimes it's going to be saying no to a piece of cake, and sometimes it's saying yes to a piece of cake. And both of those can be healthy decisions for you. And so, like, that's a very important language to try to work with clients. I really love that. I want to dive into this slow metabolism conversation because that was a really good one. So, I've done a deep dive on metabolism, but I want you to explain your best understanding of what metabolism is and why, that language could inherently not be too helpful. What's your understanding of metabolism as far how people should understand that?
Right. So, I mean, firstly, you can increase your metabolism by building more muscle mass by eating food in high fiber. But my problem is when people say it, they say it is if they have an excuse to not be their best selves. Be like, oh, I have this problem, so there's nothing I can do about it. My problem is they give the power to something that they know or they think is impossible to control. So that's the issue I have with it. Like, why are you doing that? Because whatever you tell yourself enough times, eventually you believe. So might as well believe the best things about yourself. Be like, whether you have a slow metabolism, like let's say that you can change your metabolism, cool, don't think about it, right? But something that you can control is how active you are, what you eat. So be like, I'm not the best eater, but I'm getting better. Just speak positively to yourself. Like I always tell my clients, think of yourself as an athlete because what will an athlete do if he's in your situation? Be like, oh, he'll eat this, he will do this exercise. What will an athlete do if he doesn't know what to do? Well, he'll get a coach. He'll ask the best way to go about it.
Right. It's taking ownership for it. And I think one of the things about metabolism that there is genetic variation, but the main genetic variation is actually a pretty subtle part of it. It's just like non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So you have some people that are more fidgety, and you have some people that are less fidgety, and that's where most of the change is. So like when you look at overfeeding studies, and some people will gain more weight because they won't be non-exercise, which is spontaneous energy. And some people won't move much. And then some people will hardly lose any weight because they spontaneously move more. Yes, that's a genetic variation. That is the only part. And that is a small part of it because
it's really small.
Really small. So you said gaining lean muscle mass, improving lean muscle mass. That's your BMR. That is 50 to 70% of your calories. So you can control that. Eat more protein. You can control that. And then, you want to increase your metabolism? Walk. It's like walk, eat protein, strength train. You have ownership over every single one of those choices. Yes, the genetic variation of NEAT is it's real, but it's a subtle amount. And like you said, take ownership over it. I am my metabolism. Rather than saying I have a slow metabolism, like it's a broken fucking engine, it's like you have habits that you can build that make a strong metabolism. And then from there, it's really just appetite regulation. That I think that's the other genetic variation that, some people just have more appetite. Like that is a genetic thing. That's an environmental / genetic, upbringing, right? So it's really interesting how you say you got to give people ownership over the behaviors. What are some other major challenges you see with people, especially with nutrition or even with adherence? Like, what are some other things that really work with people?
Definitely. Firstly, I have to say I am my metabolism. That's a good slogan. That is so
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
But yeah, to answer your question, it's basically the same thing we just covered. People think that they have to go all in or nothing. They think that they have to follow something super restrictive. And again, I love what you said. I also say it in a slightly different way of you can always eat whatever you want. You're not going to go to jail. You're allowed to do that. But you should get to the point where you should want things that are good for you and will make you feel better. So instead of telling my dads, telling my clients to go carnivore, vegan, whatever, I just have them write a list of everything they enjoy eating. I tell them don't filter, don't think about expensive, inexpensive, convenient, just write everything without filtering. After that, go ahead and underline everything that you think is healthy. Now, anybody can do this. If you have a professional, they can help you decipher what's actually healthy, what's not. But even if it's just you, most people have a pretty good idea of what's healthy, what's not. And if they just do this 5-minute exercise, write everything they enjoy eating, underline what's also healthy, make that 80% of the meal plan, they'll be good to go. They'll have a lot of foods that are healthy and tasty that oftentimes people are like, oh, I didn't even notice, I completely forgot that I like this food. Right? They're so used to eating junk just because it's what they're used to.
Yeah, that's a really good thing to pull into is like people need to appreciate like the healthy food that they do enjoy, and they're just like, oh yeah, no, that is a good food. One of the really cool things, because I try to always increase protein because it's going to help the
Yeah.
BMRs we talked about. It's going to help appetite significantly, and then I just show them, and this, like you said, it's this all in or all out, right? And so when you show them, hey, this is how much meat you can eat in a day, and you're still not eating enough calories. And they're like,
Yeah.
no way. No, no,
Yeah.
that's too much food. It's like, no, you haven't been eating enough food. The number one issue with yo-yo dieting is that we assume that it's salad starvation, just
Yeah.
the right amount. And like I look at this on like so many different, like there's micro scales and the meso scales and macro scales on yo-yo dieting. You'll have the person who barely eats during the day and then eats a ton at night, or they barely eat during the day and they barely eat a little bit at night, and they'll do that all weekend and they binge on the weekend. Or they do that for a month or 2, 3 months and then they binge and then they go off the rails for 3 or 4 weeks. And it's because not a single person is like all these people who are yo-yo dieting, or just, they don't know that they're entitled to the right amount of food.
Yeah.
I want to take a step back here on this because you might find this interesting. So one of the biggest things I believe about metabolism, as I mentioned, is that spontaneous thing. But the other thing is when you look at people who can hold their physiques really easily, like intuitively. So, more ectomorph and mesomorph kind of people who are naturally lean or naturally fit, okay, they get some genetic traits here. But what is it other than the non-exercise activity that makes it so easy for them? Well, to me, what it is that certainly that non-exercise activity makes them more spontaneously burn calories, but they probably also have the ability to eat the right amount of food more consistently without it bothering them. And for myself, like I was quote unquote slow metabolism, I had a huge appetite, but then when you would go into a deficit, you would just be like, okay, let's not eat for a while. And then you love the feeling of overeating and you hate the feeling of a deficit, but you grind it. And then when someone says, actually, if you ate this every day, you would still lose weight. You're like, what? No, that's too much food. So and then to actually ask someone, this is a great question to ask someone, do you know how much food you should eat in a day to not lose weight or gain weight? Do you have any idea what that feels like? I'm like, no, I've never done that. Okay. So you're used to depriving yourself and binging on yourself. You're like, that's the entire yo-yo pattern, right? And what if you slightly deficit, like just eat enough to lose weight, and then even practice. And I tell people this, practice the feeling of feeling full, because let's say you lose weight after, 4 or 5 months. Like this is the biggest revolution for me is understanding diet breaks, is like, you got to know what that feels like because it actually feels good to eat the right amount of calories, but there's still a line to walk there, right? And to not just splurge. But I think you're hitting it right on the head that people just go into the all or nothing all the time, and then they don't appreciate the kind of foods that they can enjoy, right? And then the quality of foods. So um, the main thing there, like you say, it's the food quality, bringing out better food quality, and people appreciating the food and realizing. I love that. The food inventory list I used to all the time. And what I used to do is I would get my clients to qualify them, because we should look at food on a spectrum, not good or bad, but
100%.
right. And so I say it's A to F, but you save F for things that like are alcohol and anything that's an allergy, because that's actually toxic. But even like soda or pizza is a D or a D minus, because it still gives you calories. It's not going to kill you. So we qualify it, and then people be like, oh, I guess I'm actually at a C, average, grade point average, right? And I say, you want a C physique, eat C foods. You want a B physique, B foods. And if you want an A physique, A foods. 90% of the time, and 10% you still get an A, right? So really love that. So qualifying foods. What about, I'm really curious about this, because we talked a lot about food. What about adherence of food? Like, okay, so they got their meal plan. Where do you see people kind of, okay, so and actually, this is a good question. Do you help them find it within their own food, or do you give them a customized meal plan? Because I know some trainers are different on this.
Well, I don't tell my clients, you have to eat this, you can't eat that. I just see what they enjoy eating, then be like, okay, eat more of this or eat less of that. And I also encourage my clients to never eliminate anything, but instead add. I believe that to lose weight sustainably, it's about eating more of your favorite foods, not less. It's not about restricting. It's about, okay, let's find new foods that are tasty and healthy for you. So after they have the list, I'm like, okay, the things that are not healthy you can eat every once in a while. And also every once in a while, try a new vegetable or new fish that you've never tried before, and you might find it healthy. And now you have another food that is both healthy and tasty.
Yeah, it's a really good mantra, and I do the same for protein. When I start out with a lot of people, I say eat more protein, like just double your protein and just watch what happens. I remember I worked with this one guy, and he said he was actually diabetic, and he said, "Man, this feels like magic. Like I don't crave foods." It's like, because you're not eating anything during the day, and then you're gonna crave at night. Like your body. This is why like intermittent fasting is fascinating, because people can actually manage that naturally from cortisol, right? So you wake up in the morning, you have cortisol, and your body is actually, like, think about it, animal on the plane, go search for food. It has the capacity to not eat until you find food. We have that in our ability, in our circadian rhythm. The problem is when you want to eat, then you're fucking eating, right? Because again, if you're an animal on the prairie and you had an opportunity to eat, fucking eat. You're more worried about starvation than you were over caloric consumption. So but then, like, when you just tell people to eat, just eat more of this, just eat more of it. And then it's like, it's kind of hard to overeat. Now people can overeat healthy food, but it's harder. And so it's a good approach that you give more, and then they just naturally are inclined to eat less. And they also, the really cool thing is when you get more of those whole foods in people, and you just say, hey, you can still have these other foods, but they realize their behaviors around those foods weren't serving them. Like I'd had a couple clients do like a whole food challenge, just because I wanted them to appreciate the nourishment that comes from the food. We did do like try not to have these foods for a bit and bring them back into your life. And then it just completely changed the one girl's relationship with food, where she's just like, if bread's around, I just don't treat it well. And I want foods that's nourishing me. And that's the important thing. It's a relationship you have with the foods, which I think is really cool. And I think that's cool that you don't do the typical meal plan. Like I feel like you have to customize it. Do you show them how to track calories or anything like that? Or is it just more about food choice?
100%. So I personally don't track anything myself, but that's because I'm extremely intuitive and I know exactly what I'm putting in my mouth. But for the first couple of months, I'm like, yes, you have to track, because how many calories you think you're eating there's a huge gap between what you think you're eating and what you are actually eating. So how much protein you think you consume, how much calories you think you consume is way, way, way off than what it actually is. So I definitely encourage everyone to track for at least a month or two, just so they are able to fine tune that intuition. Because eventually, I feel like everyone should get to the point where they don't have to. But initially, you have no idea. Your estimations are way off. So it's very important at the start.
Absolutely. I think like if you're overweight, and this is a pretty dangerous blanket statement, but I'm going to say it. I think in general, and I'm going to say 80 to 90% of the time, if you're overweight and you've never calorie tracked, you do not have good intuitive eating. Like
And, I feel like most people in general, even doesn't matter. Like most people just have no idea.
right, and it's just like if especially if you're overweight, you just have to admit that you don't have the intuition and knowing what's in calories, and most people don't know. Like you're 100% right. Like when we actually were looking at one client had told me he had his treat meal of the week was a Blizzard, and he had the Reese's Pieces Blizzard, and he told me, yeah, that was actually the lowest calorie one. I'm like, what? Like even like for my intuition, I watch a lot of track a lot of calories. I'm like, holy shit. Like, and I looked at the board and I was like, yeah, that's literally the lowest calories. And you assume the fat and the peanut butter, that would be more, but it wasn't. And so again, like you're just always going to be surprised what calories are in things. And generally you underestimate how much protein's actually in something. So you're not eating enough protein in general, you're eating too many calories. And so you got to bring those two numbers closer together. So I love that because I do think, you know, and everyone has a different approach, everyone has different goals. Like, so with your typical clientele, are they trying to get, you know, just look good shirtless, 10 to 20 pounds? Like how lean are they trying to get? Because that actually applies to the model.
Definitely. So most of the people I work with have 30, 40, or maybe even 50 pounds to lose. They don't want to go on stage or anything. They just want to feel better. A lot of times they don't believe having abs is possible. I'm like, hey, if you work with me for 2 years, anything is possible, right? It might take a while, but they just want to feel better. They just want to have more energy. They just want to fit better into the clothes, get rid of the medicine. So people that have 30, 40, 50 plus pounds to lose and overall just want to feel better generally.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's just, yeah, just feeling good. Like it's just like when you carry less weight around, it feels good. Now, so when you've been able to sign people up, because I think there's such a really helpful thing when people come to you. Again, I still deal with this. People sign up and there's still adherence issues, whether it's with training or with the nutrition. What are some things that you help them with overcoming this? Because, you know, even for myself, everyone's a bit different. I try to work on different strategies, and this person needed this kind of motivation. This person needed this. And some people just, because we can only inspire so much. We can only get so much until that person realizes their moment of inspiration. What are some strategies that you actually help people with maintaining adherence?
Definitely. So a very common metaphor is you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So I tell them, hey, I can't eat for you. I can't work out for you. You have to do it yourself. But again, as long as you communicate with me, you will win. If I message you every day and for a whole week you don't message me back, what do you want me to do? Like, I want to help you. My entire goal is for you to get such an amazing testimonial that you tell everyone, right? I'm on your side. But if you don't give me anything, then this is not going to work out. And that's why I filter pretty hard of the people I bring in the first place. Because I don't want to bring somebody in, waste 3 weeks of my life, they don't adhere to anything. Right? Now, obviously, if they be like, hey, this is too difficult, it's not working, I can make adjustments. But if there's no communication, then it's not something that we can improve upon. So yeah, from the start, I'd be like, hey, are you going to communicate with me? Because if it's a no, then there's no point in us starting.
Right. Yeah, and the communication's key. I've been really hammering all my clients on the same thing. It's we got to be in it together, and then that's the best chance. And again, it's the horse to water thing is a really good analogy.
Yeah.
Because you know, as a coach, you're trying to communicate with a different animal. We are different animals than them, right? Yeah. So you and I are addicted to exercise. You know, I need to do something with my body absolutely every day. The only days I won't is when I'm extremely hungover or I'm sick, like with the flu. Otherwise, I'm like, I got to hit 10K steps a day minimum. I got to do strength training 4 to 5 days a week, up to 6. Like I need my body just to feel who I am. And that means I'm a different animal. Like I don't, very few of my clients can compete with that level of, you know, because it's your identity, it's your passion, it's literally your job. So I have to appreciate the lens that they're coming in is different. And so I do really value the horse to water, because you're going to convince another animal that drinking that water is okay. But you can't speak all of their language because you just live a different life. And so trying to translate that to people, it can be a really difficult thing. But making sure that they one of the things that I know helps me more recently is making it very objective for them. Like I actually kind of just walk them through, okay, so let's look at the traits, just core traits that we want you to be able to do, is movement, strength training, eating the right food. Like, let's just look at this, rate it out of 10. But, especially if you can find it within the person, be like, what are you not doing well? And then just tell me what your action step's going to be, because I'm going to hold you accountable to the exact step that you need to do. And I think getting that honesty out of people, getting them to sit down and reflect with themselves has been really helpful, and just making it very objective, making it less about, I heard this really well recently, less about their story that they tell themselves. And it's not that the story isn't a real experience. So is a real human experience. But if you get caught up in your story and your circumstances, you're less about the application. So good clients for accountability ask questions. Clients who won't adhere will tell you their stories, because they're going to explain why they're not doing things. And I think that's such an important piece for people to appreciate. Don't get caught up in the story of your circumstances, right? Ask a question of how those circumstances are going to help you. Right? Whatever your problem is, it's the victim mindset versus, the opposite, to be able the growth mindset. It's like, how can you actually utilize this in a better? How can you learn from this? Right? So I love that. I want to know more about your training style, because I think the body weight, I did a lot of body weight when I was getting into boxing. So I was new into strength training and I didn't know that much about it. So I assumed I was going to put on too much weight, which isn't inherently true. But I did have a really good experience with some just body weight, push-ups, plyometrics. I'm still to this day a huge fan of plyometrics. What kind of principles do you bring into your strength training? Roughly, could you describe how you do your routines? I'm just really curious from a trainer, how you set it up.
Definitely. So I take a pretty similar approach, I guess, as I do to my diet. So at first I give them a pretty generic workout. I'll be like, okay, what is difficult? What is easy? What hurts? What doesn't? And then obviously, you can take any exercise and modify it to make it more difficult or easier. So a push-up, you can make it easier by doing a knee push-up. You can go on the wall, or you can make it more difficult by doing a diamond push-up. You can elevate your feet up. For every exercise, you can make it more difficult or easier, even with just body weight. So a lot of my clients, as long as they do something for 20, 30 minutes, they'll get good results, right? And as long as it's with their fitness level and they feel like they can stick to it consistently, they'll get good results. Now, again, if you want to look like Arnold, if you want to be a professional bodybuilder, going to the gym is pretty much a must. You can only do so much with body weight. But if you just want to lose 30 pounds, if you just want to have a flat stomach, have more energy, 100%, 30 minutes, 20 minutes, as long as you do it consistently and you push yourself, then you can get decent results just with body weight.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about the clients that you say have 20 or 40 pounds to lose, you already got the weight vest on.
You can just walk. That's all you do.
Absolutely.
You can just walk.
Absolutely. I think even as someone who loves strength, I know the most important form of exercise is walking. That's the baseline. Whenever you hear someone who came from overweight to losing a lot of weight, their very first thing was, I needed to walk more, because that is the best barrier to entry that you have to appreciate is there. And then, because the gym can be scary, movement can be scary, but you know how to walk. And then from there, you have someone who's, 20, 40, 50 pounds overweight. A reverse lunge is a shitload of weight on that leg, right?
100%. Yeah, that's too much.
So you're good with just body weight squats, and then eventually you apply more and more of that intensity. And like you say, it's different if you're trying to get true hypertrophy and target muscles and all those things, which some people can find a passion in. But if you're busy professional and you just want to get it in, that makes sense to just stimulate that. Basically, what people need to appreciate is that strength training is just to remind your body that muscles are important. It's because otherwise it will atrophy, it will eat it away. And that's where you get the skinny fat syndrome. You can lose body fat and muscle mass at the same time. So as long as you make sure the body knows, hey, we still need muscle, not to mention you're going to do a push better. You're going to be squatting. You're moving better. Like it is movement practice, right? So I love that model. One thing I have a question with, and this is my only beef with at-home training, is I'm very like a fundamental movement pattern guy, right? So it's been ingrained in me as squat, hinge, push, pull, and it's the pull. Like I don't see very easy access without like some equipment to the pull muscles. How do you incorporate back strength with at home? Some people don't necessarily completely need it, but should consider it for postural reasons. How do you deal with that?
Definitely. So I definitely encourage my clients to, after a few weeks, after they have momentum going, be like, hey, you saw you don't need a fancy gym to get good results. Then I encourage them to get a $5 band and do band pulls. Super simple. And again, you don't need dumbbells. A band literally costs $5 and you can do so much with it. Obviously, you can do a row as well, just with a $5 band. But if they refuse to do that, then okay, you can do Supermans like for lower back. And honestly, if you just think about contracting the muscles, like if you just think about doing the motion of a row and you think about puffing chest out, squeezing shoulder blades back and down, if you think about squeezing your muscles, it's 100% not ideal. But if that's the only thing we have, then that's something we can do. Now, if my clients want to go to the gym, I give them the option, but a lot of them are just too intimidated. They don't want to go. They feel like they don't have time. I'm like, okay, let's start with the easy wins. Let's start with you getting good results. Then doing the best we can to work out everything, obviously. And if you want to get the very optimal results and after you have more confidence, then you can go to the gym and completely break down your back.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and I'm really glad you said band pull parts. That made me very happy because that's the one thing. It's just something for your back because I had so many shoulder issues from I did boxing and then I was doing plyometric push-ups. I was doing push-ups. I was doing this and that, hitting the bag, no rows. Like I did a bit in high school pull-ups here and there. And I didn't start using my back until my shoulders got hurt. And so that's why I'm always like, where's the pull? Where's the pull? So, but I give you a couple ideas too that I would recommend to at-home clients, which you may or may not already do. But I highly recommend those TRX setups that TRX had the patent on it for years. So it used to be, they are $250. You can get them now for like the rip-offs for like $60. Yeah. So whenever someone's like, I don't want to spend a lot on equipment, go get a TRX because you can do all kinds of rows on there. You can do arms, you can do legs, like single leg. You can assist the reverse lunge if you have a hard time with the reverse lunge, whole bunch of stuff, core stuff, but I highly recommend that. And that can go with anyone on a trip. That's something I always bring on a trip. So I have accessibility. You can do kind of almost like pull-ups on there in rows. The other thing I would recommend for you to look into is, I know Joe DeFranco has got some excellent exercises on postural ones. And because the postural YTWs, and you can do them as isometrics, like you say, contracting the muscles. And then I even just found if you get someone to lay on their stomach and to do a neck extension, like to literally kind of manually resist it. I did it myself. I'm like, holy shit, my neck postural muscles are so weak.
Yeah.
Already, like just walking away after that. So YTWs, neck extensions, I highly recommend. But no, it sounds like you got a good fit there. And it's really, especially at the start, the first 10 to 20 pounds, like, it absolutely doesn't need to be perfect. It's about getting them to realize, hey, we can do this anywhere, anytime. And that's the approach I've always taken because my dad is a farmer. And so I would be working in the field with him. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go bust out a plyometric leg circuit. And it's still to this day my favorite away from the gym workout to do for lower body. And you just do a bunch of like time on, time off between speed squats, Bulgarian split squats, jump squats, split squat jumps. My legs are fried for days. I want to see some research on plyometric failure reps. Because with plyometrics, whenever you see it utilized, it's power, right? Yeah. It's always in the 4 to 6 rep range. What about 12 to 15? What is that doing to your physiology? And I personally believe, based on my experience, that actually adds hypertrophy. That adds muscle growth. It can be dangerous, because if you don't have a good jump and stuff like that, and it takes a while, takes a long time to recover if you're not used to it. But I found that was actually where I got a lot of my muscle growth. So, what are some other really cool idea or things coming down the pipeline for you? I'm really curious. What's, this really cool program you got. What's your most recent ambition, whether it's with the program or just in life?
Definitely. So I like to emphasize that everyone should start with the easy wins, things that don't take a lot of time or effort, and move the needle in their favor. So again, they feel more confident, they know that this works, and then they will be willing to put even more effort during the workouts. So as an example, everyone sleeps, right? And it's difficult to get hours of sleep, but it's simple to get a higher quality of sleep if you know the best ways to go about it. And getting high quality sleep will allow you to have more energy. It will improve your hormones, make you have high testosterone and low cortisol, easier for you to build muscle and lose fat. And again, if you know what you're doing, it doesn't take a lot of time, right? Or like another easy win is I always have a water bottle within arm's reach at all times, right? And most people are chronically dehydrated, causing them to look and feel bloated. If they simply drink more water, then they will feel a lot better. They will get rid of all the water weight and promptly lose the water weight and just have more energy, feel a lot better. So yeah, I just like to emphasize the easy wins, make sure you master those, and then you have a lot more confidence within yourself that you can really do this.
Yeah, I love that. The water everywhere, man. I love that you said that, because I started, like, it took me a while to tell my clients that, because I thought everyone did it. And then
Yeah, there's so many things like that.
It's just such a second nature thing to us, right? And then somebody can be criticized, like, I bet you don't have anything about water in your program. And I'm like, oh my God, why did I not? Oh yeah, like some people don't drink water still. They still drink soda. Shit, okay.
Yeah.
And then even some of my clients, they were like, oh yeah, I'm still not drinking enough water. I'm like, okay, you just water bottle absolutely everywhere you go. And it's just like water everywhere. I started that in high school. It was just a second nature thing for me. And then from there, you actually got to tell them, okay, when you wake up, before and after a meal, not a ton, just like, because you're not trying to, just completely dilute yourself, but just make it so it's like a routine. If you see it, drink it. It's not going to be bad for you. And then I literally just tell them, it's like, when is it enough? I'm like, okay, try to, like, I heard this from Jordan Sayat. He just told people 4 water bottles, just a simple standard. But it's like, he's like, I don't even care if it's a liter or not. Like, it's just 4. It just gives someone a number. But what I actually kind of even help people, I'm like, hey, just look at your pee. Like, just
that's what I say.
Yeah, it's simple. It's like, it shouldn't be completely clear, like you're going every 30 minutes. But if it's yellow, like really yellow, it's not a good sign. Like, you can kind of estimate this and anticipate when you're going to need water. So you're going to need water when you wake up, because you haven't had any for 8 hours, hopefully 8 hours sleep. And then you're going to need it before and after exercise and before and after meals. From there, it's hard not to have 4 water bottles worth, right? So really love that. I just wanted to point that out, because there's still people who are not getting enough water. So I think that's a great one. But yeah, is there anything else in life? Anything else you're really excited coming down for 23? Like, it's a big year here.
Yeah, this year does feel different. I can't pinpoint why, but it definitely feels different. I'm just excited to really expand my online business, talk to more great people like yourself, and just put more content on social media. I'm not really a social media person, but you kind of have to like, be able to help more people. So yeah, I'm excited to continue putting more content and helping people in that route.
Yeah, I like how you say that there's something different about this year, and I think I know what it is. I know there's some overshadowing COVID still, but this is the first year that we feel like, okay, we're actually fairly confident in most places, not everywhere in the world, of stepping into like culture that's a little bit more comfortable. So it was just beyond the stranglehold of COVID for over 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And so now it's like, hey, there's a bit more optimism, maybe, and so I think it's really exciting, and I love that attitude. So and social media is unfortunately the name of the game with the online training. And so it's understanding that language in the world we live in. But the good thing for people like me and you is that we have opportunity to reach more people than ever before. I've been saying it for a while. Instead of being a fisherman in a pond, which is what trainers used to be, we are now fishermen at the sea. So there's some treacherous waters, so you got to have a big rig out there. but
Oh
it's
yeah.
really cool how much more we have access to. And just like we're trying to just help more, right? So I think it's really great that people like you are out there and helping people. I'm even honestly, I'm not kidding you. I'm going to be approaching like my parents with your approach, because I have too much of a strength coach mindset that almost was possibly a limitation for them, or just some people who need that lower barrier to entry. I think people like you are really helpful, because like I work well with people who like training, like for
Yeah.
sure. I know how I can kind of dumb it down, but you're at this point where like, no, like it can be super simple. And I'm gonna take this approach because I think it's a really good thing for people to appreciate. Hey, just start walking, bodyweight squats and push-ups off the wall. And if you start that habit, then gateways open up. And I think that's really great. And again, I think it's great that people like you are out there. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Let the people know where they can find more about you and your program.
Definitely. So my website is danielrazfit.com. So that's DanielRazFit.com. On Twitter, I'm Daniel_Raz_fit. I'm really active there. Just got to 10,000 followers. I'm pretty happy about that. And on Instagram, I'm Daniel Raz Fit. I make different type of content than Twitter, so follow me on both.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. I'll leave all that stuff in the show notes for you as well. So thank you so much, Daniel, today for coming on the podcast, and don't hesitate to reach out to come on and we can find out more about how this adventure has been going for you in the online world. Sound good?
Yes, sir. Thanks a lot.
See you later. Thank you so much to Daniel for that conversation. I loved it. It was a lot of fun because it's fun to just, sometimes I have notes as far as like what I'm going to ask people, and I didn't need any. I knew I was just going to be really interested in his story, especially knowing that he came from Asia. I wasn't even aware of that prior. And then for him to kind of go on this idea of how he works with people and holds the accountability, and how we have very similar challenges as far as talking to people, as far as how people hold accountability. And this is really what I hope you as a listener can appreciate, is if you're trying to get things moving in the right direction, accountability is everything. And it really just makes things easier. Make sure that you don't lie to yourself as often as you do. I'm a very big advocate for this, because I realized it when I finally said that statement. I lie to myself more than any other human in the world, because you're the most adjacent. It's just definitely where you're going to make those mistakes. You lie to yourself to make comfort. You lie to yourself to make the immediate emotional decision feel justified, but it's not serving you. And so if you have to talk to a coach, you have to talk to someone for accountability and say, this is actually what I did wrong. It makes you hold more honesty to the moment, but then you can problem solve and you can actually look at what the problem is. And this is actually one of the things that I don't think people realize with accountability and coaching and just being more honest with themselves in the moment. Is we talked about, it's not about the language of just saying, hey, I fucked up. Hey, I messed up. I did this and that. It's not that. It's problem solving. This was the mistake, but let's look into that mistake. And that's what a coach will do for you. And if you can't afford a coach, you should do for yourself. You need to be honest with yourself about what the mistake was, but then evaluate that mistake. Ask yourself, okay, why did I eat this? Or why did I not actually show up to train? What was it? Was it fatigue? Was it emotions? Was food covering emotions that I was challenged by that day? Did I just stop a little bit too long on the couch after work and kind of put off that strength training too long? And these are the things that coaches can help you with, but if you can't get a coach, you got to do it yourself. So that's why they advocate for coach. And if you can't afford a coach, even just get someone who is currently doing it. Let's say you got a friend or a family member, they're doing awesome with training and nutrition, all that stuff. Make them your accountability partner. Like just chat with them once a month to start, maybe once every other week, and be like, hey, can you just be my accountability partner? Because it is about not doing this battle alone. As I hammered this in the conversation with Daniel. Me and Daniel are different beasts than someone who does not eat, nutritional food consistently, someone who does not strength train consistently. If you are not able to do this, like it's intuitive with you, we can't relate as much as you can to the problems that you're faced right now. It's been so embedded in me and Daniel that training and nutrition is just a necessity. So what you could actually help yourself with is to really think about what needs to change within my identity to make it a part of my identity, so that you don't have to be the horse going to water. You can be another one of the people that just knows that water is good for you, and you don't have to overthink it. So I think we had some really great topics in there. I really hope it did help you, because I think it helped me hearing his lens on, you know, as much as I love the gym, and I do, it's a passion of mine, powerlifting, bodybuilding, boxing, all those things. I forgot I came from body weight. I forgot that was kind of my lower barrier to entry when I was boxing. It was a great system because you don't need any weights. You really don't. And I still go to body weight. When COVID happened, I wasn't as like sad as some people might have been. I was like, hey, I'm challenged to use my body physically to challenge me. Like, it was a fun experiment. How many reps can I do with this? How many reps can I do with that? And I had some really hard, cool, different workouts. Body weight goes a very long way. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I got bored by the end of the second lockdown, but that doesn't mean there wasn't other challenges I could have done. I was just very much 2 sets and reps in that. But side tangent there. My main point here is that body weight can work for so many people, and I think that is a great introduction for so many people. So if you or you know someone who's like not quite into training yet, body weight, or for yourself, don't forget, like, if you can't get to the gym, just do something. Make those legs burn, make the upper body burn. Just do something. It's always better, because it's better for your physiology. Your muscles are not going to want to let go of that muscle. It's better for your movement patterns. You're going to push better. You're going to lunge better. You're going to walk better. You're going to run better. And the other major thing I say is, there's 2 pieces. 1, you've mentally challenged yourself. And 2, you've made time for it. And that's what really gets people off, is like, oh, I can't go to the gym. Oh, I can't do this. It's like, oh, I don't have time for it. It's like, you have time. You don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to drive there. You just got to do something. You got to care that you did it. Again, the thing that made me and Daniel different is that I care if anything got done in a day, even if it's not optimal. So there's a lot in this episode that you can take from it. You can take from the nutrition aspects as well, some of the things that both of us agree on, language and calorie tracking, the food quality, just more of good food makes such a difference, right? And so I really hope you learned a lot. I do recommend you go check out Daniel's stuff, especially if you're looking for something more simple at home, get you going, get you that first 20 to 40 pounds off, or if you know someone that totally recommend it. You know, my style is more strength training in the gym and helping you with some getting real strength. That's my style. So totally hope you recommend or reach out to either of us. And please like, subscribe, all those good things. Leave a 5-star review. It goes so far for me. I really appreciate it. But no matter what, I appreciate you as a listener. I appreciate you always coming in and hearing what I have to say. So thank you so much for checking this out today. And just remember, my friend, it is not about the pursuit of happiness, but rather it's about the happiness within that pursuit. And I'll catch you next time.